everyone. My name is Deanna. I work at Harper Canada. Just a bit of background about me. I'm a content producer. I came up in the digital world. I used to work for Alliance Atlantis. I've been writing content on the internet since 1997. I kind of think of that in cat life terms. I think those 13 years I've spent on the internet make me a grandmother, so I like to look at it that way because everything sort of moves so fast. Today, I really wanted to talk about I really wanted to answer all those questions, and I'm afraid I don't, because I don't think all the answers are out there or that we're going to be able to discover them today, but I'm hoping we can talk about them a little bit, and I'm really hoping that if there are questions or that if anybody has anything to say or if anybody wants to shout at me, please do that in between. So I've been seeing this image everywhere. Seth Godin used this at The Art of Marketing, and I really wanted to just make the point that we're bombarded in the news, and especially in industry news, that that publishing is troubled, that something is pronounced dead in every email newsletter that I receive on a daily basis. And I think the novel died again last week for maybe its 27th time. And all I would like to say is that I really love the implication of this, that we're not necessarily at war, but we really do need to keep calm and carry on, because there are some things we do and there are some things that we do really well. So I think we have more questions than answers. And when I really started to think about what I wanted to talk about today, and it was that I really believe that content needs to be free-flowing in digital formats, that it needs to go from book to digital and from digital from device to device. But I think there are a lot of people here today who are a lot smarter than I am and who have fixed this problem. And I think that maybe we need to move past and realize that that issue is going to get solved. But I think the key right now is to match the right content with the right platform. And if you can do that, then I think that you're going to get some publishing gold. I don't think we can be in the business of derailing our content because of its inherent delivery method. And I realize that it's an uphill battle. But let's not devalue our content from the start. Let's recognize, all of us here as a group, that our content has value and that it's worth really saving. I need to do this. Come on, move. There. I was at Tools of Change. I'm sure a few other people were at Tools of Change, and I love the fact that ebooks are a format, like a trade paperback is a format, like mass market is a format, but it's a format that gives the reader not only the choice in the platform that they get to read that content, but how they use that content. They use it on their mobile, they use it on their computer, they use it in an e-reader, and I think we really need to find ways to exploit this choice. I think you need to bolster your books. You need to experiment as much as possible with the format because it is really malleable and flexible. And you need to use you kind of need to use it as a playground at the moment. It's sort of like what the web was doing, circa 1995, when I sort of started recognizing that there even was a web. And I know there was a lot of talk about enhanced applications being, beta or the CD-ROM of the world, and I have to admit, I have a giant crush on enhanced editions. This is Peter Collingridge's project. He presented at Tools of Change. I think I blushed through his entire presentation because it was really kind of cool. And I like that what they can do there is take a reading experience and take a user experience and have analytics that can really tell us how people are using that content. And once you know how people are using that content, that's power that you can use to create more content that more people will use. I think that what's also very interesting is that the data comes from the user, that there's no focus group, there's no inflated surveys, and honestly, who does not lie on a survey? I use 90210 as my postal code every single time. That there are great stats from things like the Death of Bunny Monroe app that they did. And what I really liked is that the average use of an iPhone app is 5 minutes. The average use of the Bunny Monroe app was 24 minutes. Now, if you're a web person like me, you're used to looking at stats and people coming to your website and spending a minute and spending 2 minutes, and you're like, yay, I had them for 2 minutes. They had them on Bunny Monroe for 24 minutes. And another thing I'd like to point out is that if anybody's giving you resistance that people don't like to read on the web, at Harper Canada we have an application called Browse Inside. It's an application that only lets you read books online. You can read up to 20% of a book at a time. People spend, on average, 10 minutes reading our content. Again, if you're a web person, you know that stat is really quite impressive. The other thing that they were noting about enhanced editions is that the synchronized audio and video performed with synchronized audio and video, that audio performed better than video, and that social media wasn't used. So within that Bunny Monroe application, they weren't sending it to a friend, they weren't doing any of those kinds of things, they were sitting and experiencing the content. To me, that makes me feel very positive, because that enhanced edition is essentially functioning like a book. People are treating it like a book. They're not treating it like a website, they're not treating it like an application. They are sitting down, concentrating in it, and listening to it and paying attention. I think that's a unique opportunity, and I think enhanced editions, Peter Collingridge in general, had a really unique opportunity with an artist like Nick Cave, because not only is he a writer, he's also a musician, so he scored the enhanced edition himself, he's scored movies, and he recorded the audio himself. So it's not always that every single book or every single author will fit into a project like that. It's a unique opportunity when you have the right author. And I also think that it's a good thing to note is that an application is very different from an ebook, and that content fundamentally works in different ways. That you need to be sure that you're not confusing this from an editorial perspective. And I know we're all trying to figure out this space, and we're all trying to really work out what is what. I really look at as an ebook as another sort of, it's another format. It's like trade paperback, it's like all of those other kinds of things. But an application is something entirely different. And I'm just going to throw some stats out at you, because I'm not an app developer. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. That they are a 17.5 billion business by 2012. That the growth rate for application business in general is 92%, and that the Apple App Store grows by 375% year over year. I think that those are very interesting opportunities for us as publishers, for where publishing meets technology, and if you can find a company that you can work with so that you take all the pressure off yourself to be developing these things, there are interesting opportunities to be found there. I think the key is to find the right content that fits, that you can build a brand, and that you can have reach with those products. Again, all of these things are not right for every book, and I think we're going to find some solace in that. Some books are going to be better just as books, and that is okay. Oh, I keep pointing this up here thinking it will do something, but I have to point it at here. So because I'm a web writer, I write top 10 lists. I do it all the time. If anyone tries to tell you that a top 10 list is not a good thing to put on the internet, they're wrong. A top 10 list is a great thing to put on the internet. I encourage everyone to try it. So once I decided that I wasn't going to be able to answer all of the questions that I had 6 months ago when Morgan kind of forced me into doing this, I thought, what the hell else am I going to talk about? Because I think we haven't even solved the really very basic issues of evolving into a world where the boundaries are more flexible, and that's evolving into this online world. And for me, it always comes back to content, especially how to create it for the web. And I think we're doing a lot of running before we walk, a lot of panicking before we are actually trying to figure out what the right thing is to do for our business. And I think that here are 10 really good ways to exploit our content on the web, and feel free to disagree with me. Actually, I encourage it. Change. There. So, number 1, stop building static websites. The strategy behind them is, if we build it, they will come. The picture that I have up here is from the publisher's office. It's a beautiful website, don't get me wrong. It's got great content, but standalone sites have been hailed as the solution to conquering the direct-to-consumer problem that us as publishers moving into a business the direct-to-consumer problem that as B2B people generally thought that this is how we were going to solve our internet problem. We're going to build these fantastic websites. But here's the problem, is that these sites get great industry press, but I think that industry press is as damning as it is convincing. How do you build enough traffic to recoup enough sales for the ROI to be worth it when there are no other opportunities for monetization with this model? I call these sites budget eaters. They are great content trapped with no traffic, and you have to solve the reach and build brand at the same time. Publishers, for the longest time, with very key and excellent exceptions, aren't brands. And so it is really hard to drive the amount of sustained traffic that you need to a site like this to make it actually worth building it. And the other thing that I would really like to make a point of is that we as an industry are really good at reaching avid readers. We already have a converted audience, and I think it's harder and harder and harder to expand that avid reader audience with cookie cutter content like this. You need to find ways to get at the sweet spot of casual readers who can turn a book into a pop culture phenomenon. And I don't think you can do it by building a static website. Feel free to disagree with me though. Failure with a capital F, but what if it sucks? Let it suck. This is our company blog. I mean, I started this 3 years ago when I started at Harper Canada. I am lucky to work at a company where they let me experiment and do all kinds of things. And I just want to say this blog is a giant mess, and I am fully willing to admit that it's a giant mess. It is full of all of the direct-to-consumer content that we can't find a place or a way to make it fit into our to our business-to-business website, which is what HarperCollins.ca. So right now, we get great traffic. I mean, this blog gets 500 page views a day, which to me, I think is quite fine for a blog. There's no structure. It's a dumping ground for all kinds of content, but we used it as a free solution, and it's out of box, and what we're trying to do is build an audience, build a brand, and then we can evolve. That's the whole, and I'd just like to point out that the most clicked, I guess, the top 10 list that got the most page views was called Top 10 Tales of Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, and that drove 300,000 page views. So, top 10 lists. So your content isn't an all-purpose vehicle. Anyone that's heard me talk before knows how I feel about content versus context. Context is important at the place where the consumer or the business partner makes a decision. If you have a blurb on your B2B website, if you have a blurb in the book description, if you have the book description, or if you have a blurb on an online retailer site, that is relevant. That is going to, all of that together is going to increase conversion in that environment. The more robust your context around a title, the more chances you have of improving sales. It's incremental. It's from 1% to 3%. If you add a video, it's 4%. But that doesn't mean that this content should be used in every single piece of copy you create. And I'm talking about ads, Twitter, Facebook, blog. No, this is not content. This is context. And I think we need to make that distinction on the internet. Please build content. Don't build context. I'm getting angry. So use what's in your back pocket. I love Margaret Atwood. So what I mean by this is, like you build a website, you have a blog, we're publishers and we're like, who's going to do it? Who's going to write it? For goodness sakes. Oh, I need to change my page. I think this is a no-brainer, that we've got amazing content between our covers. Please bust out of your first 1,000 words ghetto. Those are not the excerpts that you need to be using all the time. Go through the book and find something that's more interesting, more relevant, more bite-sized, and can really grab an online audience. Online readers, they love to be all over the place. They like to jump from topic to topic. You yourself as an online user know the things that catch your attention. It's not always the first 1,000 words in your product. Find a better excerpt, and then syndicate it wherever possible. And ask your authors if they want to do stuff for you. You'll be surprised at how many of them will say yes. Click. Come on. Okay. The power of conversion. How do we get them to pay if we're giving it all away for free? So one of my favorite statistics, and we use this all the time when we're speaking in classrooms across Canada, is that 1 in 3 people who browse end up buying. You don't need a fancy application to do this, but it does need to be interesting content, and not everyone has the resources to go out and build a reading application like Browse Inside. Not everybody has the means to put their content up in a really pretty package, but you can find solutions. This is Wiley Canada's Twitter feed. I like Wiley Canada's Twitter feed, and I think that this is really cute because it got me to click. Another yummy recipe from the Gourmet Pregnancy, which I just thought that's an amazing vertical. Ham and grilled pineapple with honey mustard cream cheese, and where this excerpt goes is to Scribd. And I know Scribd is a little terrifying because of all of the copyright stuff that is sometimes around it, but it was a really good solution for Wiley Canada, who doesn't necessarily have, the built-in reading application that say somebody like Harper Canada does. And I think in every single, and and everyone who was at Book Camp Vancouver knows that this is the thing that I will drill into everyone who I talk to, but every single piece of content has the power to convert someone. Everything you put up on the web has the power to convert to a click, then to a buy, then to a user, then to somebody who becomes an advocate for you. The more content that fits in with its environment, the higher you'll convert, the more you'll convert. You need to make sure that the content that you're using fits into the product, that the content that you're building fits to the product in which you're using. And it's cachet versus cache. You need to really work the search engine optimization, the long tail, call it what you will, but evergreen content leads to clicks, and clicks lead to conversion. It's the 2 to 4 times rule. It's visitors who experience your content for the most time. So a visitor coming to your site because they've clicked on something like this is 4 times more likely to put that content somewhere else, to retweet it, to put it up on their own site, to blog about it, than somebody that lands on your site from Google. These people are called influencers, and I learned this from Taddy Hall over at Advertising Age. Paid search, as fantastic as it is not as great a conversion tool as a really good content. Our jobs are all about building influence because we have trusted voices. You need to definitely work the fact that you know your content better than anyone else. You know how to sell your content better than anyone else. You know what's valuable about your content better than anyone else. Don't be afraid to tell the world that. I used to work for a giant media conglomerate, a television company, and one of their current strategies is why they want everybody to be coming to Twitter or any kinds of that under their particular brand is they want to start the conversation, which I think is really silly, because starting a conversation and just having people sitting on your Facebook page or reading your Twitter or reading your blog is just the first step. You really always want to be encouraging your users to do something else. Click somewhere, buy something. Conversion is the key. So what's the value of a visitor? The Silicon Alley Insider every day sends out a chart, and I love them. For this one, it's just showing you, like, for every unique visitor that comes to Google, AOL, Yahoo, Microsoft, or Facebook, what their actual dollar value is. I think my point is a little bit harder to make to our audience because we don't sell advertising for the most part on our site, so it's a lot harder to monetize. But I think it's what's interesting about this is that the point that I want to make is that you need to examine your traffic. So a very small percentage of your traffic, about 1 to 2 to 5%, these are the people who read the most. So you need to go deep into your data, you need to find somebody who understands your data, and you really need to see where your content is working, what content is working. How do we figure out the value of what our visitors are? Well, it's really hard to convert a bouncer who comes in out of a Google search, and I love the fact that Mitch Joel at the Art of Marketing conference said that 20% of Google searches have never been done before. So relying on Google to build your content or to build your web traffic for you is really kind of scary. More what you need is you need to find people who are coming to your site because they were referred there. You need to find people who are coming from blogs, people who are coming from Twitter, people who are coming from Facebook, because you know that they're there because they've been encouraged to be there. You need to create content in clusters, features with these kinds of users in mind, and give them the ability to share it. If you're creating content, there needs to be a very definable way that people can forward that content on to other people. And the other way you can tell what the value of your visitors is you can you can look at how many of them clicked on the buy link once they were finished with the content. You can rely on the fact that these influencers can be huge traffic drivers. And then you can also measure engagement versus conversion. And once you know your traffic and once you know what content is actually working, you can explain that traffic, which will give you the justification to build more content. Brand versus vertical. I wanted to draw a Venn diagram, but I really don't know how to use PowerPoint. So just imagine there's a Venn diagram there, and in the center where those two things meet is where we as publishers have amazing opportunities. The majority of publishers, with a few clear exceptions, aren't major brand destinations like Martha Stewart, Omni Media. But they make excellent partners, and you need to find the brands that have the kind of reach that you want, the 7 million unique visitors a month, the 15 million unique visitors a month. These sites exist, and dollars to donuts, you have content that will fit into these sites. Websites are looking for content. If you show them the value, they will definitely be receptive to working with you. Verticals like Etsy, I think, are really excellent places to find content advocates, and that was really the only point that I was trying to make. So what are content advocates? Tear down the ivory tower. So this is our Facebook group. It's an ongoing kind of concern. I think Facebook for us, or for this particular experiment of Facebook, had really great engagement. It doesn't convert in the ways that I would like it to, but what I really like about it and why I wanted to put this up here and why I wanted to make this point is that content advocates will do a lot of the work for you. Well, I don't know if we really found the solution for how to use Facebook for publishing with our Facebook group here. What we did do is encourage, I think we have 2,000 visitors or 2,000 members. 10% of them started blogs because of the books they were reading. So now they've become content advocates for me. They're going to build content by example, so they're going to see that, that I have a blog, or other people in our group have a blog. They are thinking they can do the same thing. They have things to say about our content. So they are doing the amplification for us. They've become influencers. They've become those 2 to 4 timers that will get more people to your website. And the other thing that they'll do is tell other people how much they love certain things that they've read, which we all know the power of word of mouth is quite awesome. So death by endless opportunities. You want me to post the what in the where. It's apparent that everyone is using the same free tools to create content, and that it's really hard to stand out. It's really hard to kind of rise yourself above. Oh, this is a fantastic chart from CMO.com that Steve sent over to me, and it just shows you all of the value of what the different social media sites are for. It's an excellent tool for authors that want to try, or that are a little bit hesitant to get into social media. If anyone doesn't know how to find it, I'll send you the link. My email address is coming up. Anyway. So everyone is using the same free tools to create content, and it's hard to stand out. And the number one thing that I tell everyone when I talk about social media is to please do it authentically, and that you need to teach authors and editors and non-web people the value of how to use social media, but only if they're encouraged to do so. I think forcing everyone to use Facebook is not the answer. Forcing everyone to be on Twitter is not the answer. But what I really like is that the people who are on Facebook and Twitter and who post things up to Dig and who use StumbleUpon, they believe in your content. And once you have them believing in your content, again, they're going to amplify for you. You need to be smart and be strategic when you're using these tools. And you need to realize that not every book or author or event needs the same attention, that sometimes it can turn into spam. And that is every single content producer's nightmare, is having their words turned into spam where people are just deleting them or not paying attention. So at that point, you're no longer building content. You're just bothering people. And I like that at TOC, Chris Brogan said something really nice, which is be human. And I realized that being human doesn't always scale when you have, umpteen thousand titles that you have to promote in any given season, and you have authors that are willing to do stuff who aren't willing to do stuff. But I think if you pick 2 or 3 books, or if you pick a certain number of books that you really want to try this stuff with, you'll find an author that's willing to do it hand in hand with you. Okay, so number 10, create events, not email. So I think there's a misconception that community always converts, but it isn't as if your conversion rate is 2 to 3% is not really the problem with community. I think the issue is that you always need to be growing your community, and this is never an easy thing to do. I really love this idea. This is one book, one Twitter. It's kind of this author wants every single person on Twitter to read the same book and then tweet about it. I think that's a fantastic idea. How he's going to make it happen, I have no idea. But the point that I want to make is that if you create content and events into the direct-to-consumer world, you're going to get people involved, and I think people like to be involved. They want to be involved. And this is sort of like, I call this my hippie pie in the sky because, I am a little bit of a hippie, and I think that we don't always have to be competing with one another. Dan Wagstaff and I, in the summer, he works at Raincoast, did the Undeath Match, where we pitted Pride and Prejudice and Zombies against Guillermo del Toro's The Strain, and we had the community vote on who would win. Vampires won, thank you very much. But it caught on, and now we have 6 or 7 different publishers involved with us. We have someone from the CBC who works in really integrate media, who's helping us build up the site, and it's something that caught on. So I know that I know there's only limited space on shelves, and I know that essentially we're all in business, and it can't all be hippie pie in the sky, but I think there are opportunities within content verticals, within relationships. Talk to your friends, do stuff with your friends, and you can do this for free online, and it doesn't have to have anything other than the desire to have some fun. Okay, so just a couple of quick takeaways. My dad's a firefighter, so stop, drop, and roll. Stop building bloated websites because you think you should. Please stop building context instead of content, and roll with the punches when it comes to social media. So this is me, if I can get it to click. Yes. So Deanna.McFadden at HarperCollins.com. My blog is Tragic Right Hip. On Twitter, I am at Tragic Right Hip, so if you want to disagree with me, please do. How am I doing for time? We're good? So questions, please. Dude! To be perfectly honest, I think Facebook failed. Like, with the exception of those bloggers starting and we having a really good core group of really good book bloggers that came out of it, the group was only interested when I was giving them free stuff. So the minute that we couldn't afford to do that anymore because shipping is expensive, like we were essentially using, I don't want to say garbage, but we were essentially using leftover galleys in the office that were going to go to pulp, and we were just trying to imagine that people somewhere out there wanted to read that content. The minute that wasn't viable anymore, they abandoned. And we had really great engagement. Like I would send them a book and they would talk about it and they would use the forums and they would chat and chat and chat and chat and chat. The minute I said to them, okay, well, you can still read our books, you just have to read them and browse inside, they're like, oh no. And it was done. And so now we sort of need to figure out a way, and I think a lot of us need to figure out a way to make Facebook work, because what I find about Facebook is that people use Facebook a lot, but they don't do anything other than use Facebook. Like, they don't ever leave Facebook. And they're in Facebook, and they're talking and stuff on Facebook, and what I want them to do is come to Facebook and learn something great about a book that I love and that I want to talk about, and then click through and read a blog post about it, and then click and buy the book, and I'm not finding that that's happening. So if anybody has a better way of figuring that out, please tell me. Like, getting on the walls is crucial. Like, getting stuff on the walls and getting stuff through applications is crucial. I absolutely agree. That could be a good option. They're spending 24 minutes because it's like a book. So, I mean, Steve actually would be better to describe it, Steve Osgood, whom I work with, because he actually has an eye gadget. I don't have an eye gadget. Shh. But from what I understand is that, so it's narrated, Nick Cave recorded the audiobook. There's really interesting video within the application. He also recorded the score, so it's really beautiful, and the score is beautiful. I have listened to it. And there are different places in the text where you can have enhanced options to do enhanced things, but you can also opt not to do those enhanced things. And I think that that's a really good functionality to have your reader be able to opt in or not opt in. And I urge everyone to try it out. And there were some other really interesting stats. Peter Collingridge's Tools of Change Ignite speech is on the Tools of Change website, so it would be a really great thing to kind of go through and see all the different metrics they were tracking. From an online web person's perspective, the things that they were tracking and the things that they were finding really reinforces for me the fact that it's the content within that application that's valuable, not all the gadgets and stuff that were around it. I don't know if that answers your question. That's the $1 million question, Dan. Like, I know that it is impossible. So from my own experience, I find a few projects that I feel really passionate about and I work in a larger company, so it's a little bit easier for me because I have other people that can do other things and help support other things. I find a few things that I'm really passionate about, and then I just work. I work hard. I'll blog and I'll put stuff on Savvy Reader, and I'll work our partnerships, and I will do everything humanly possible within my own network to kind of make the things that I feel really strongly about stand out. And I absolutely agree with you. When Chris Brogan was talking at Tools of Change, and he was saying you have to build one by one, you have to be human, you have to do it like that, you have to do it like that. And I'm thinking, holy crap, we publish thousands of books a year, and it's impossible. It's impossible. I did not answer your question on purpose. I don't think there is an answer. Are we out of time? Yeah, okay. Oh, I'm going to leave this up here.